My name is Lumina, 28 years old, and my wedding day almost completely collapsed when my father chose my sister over me. After promising to walk me down the aisle, he backed out when Ornella suddenly scheduled her party the exact same day. My sister, who had always been consumed with jealousy toward me, had won once again, or so I thought. What my father never expected was who would step in to take his place, and his reaction when he discovered the truth still sends chills down my spine. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more family drama stories that will make yours seem totally normal. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, our family appeared picture-perfect from the outside. Our modest two-story home with the white picket fence and carefully maintained garden was the pride of the entire block. Mom planted daffodils every spring, and Dad would spend weekends teaching me how to ride a bike or throw a softball. Those are the memories I cling to desperately. My father, Thaddeus, was my absolute hero throughout my early childhood. Standing 6 feet 2 inches tall with salt and pepper hair that appeared way too early in his 30s, he had this commanding presence but the warmest smile. He worked as a financial advisor at a local firm, wearing these crisp suits that I thought made him look like a movie star. Every single morning before leaving for work, he would make time to sit with me at breakfast, asking about my day ahead while Mom packed my lunch. "Lumina, you have the brightest mind I've ever encountered," he would tell me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're going to change the world someday." Those words meant absolutely everything to me. While other kids totally dreaded school projects, I would throw myself into them with complete enthusiasm, knowing my dad would help me create the best science fair volcano or history presentation. When I brought home straight A's, he would put my report card on the refrigerator and take me for ice cream to celebrate. My mother, Morwenna, was the peacekeeper of our entire family. With her warm brown eyes and incredibly patient demeanor, she balanced out my father's occasional strictness perfectly. She worked part-time as a nurse at the local hospital, always putting our needs before her own. I remember how she would sit with me for hours helping with homework or teaching me to bake her famous chocolate chip cookies that the whole neighborhood absolutely raved about. The dynamic in our house shifted dramatically when I turned 12. Mom started feeling exhausted all the time, and within 3 months, we received the devastating diagnosis: stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The following 6 months were a complete blur of hospital visits, whispered conversations between adults, and watching my vibrant mother wither away before my very eyes. When she passed, it left this gaping hole in our family that we never properly addressed. My sister Ornella is 3 years older than me, and our relationship was complicated from the very start. Even before Mom died, Ornella seemed to resent the close bond I shared with our father. She was tall and athletic, where I was petite and bookish. Ornella excelled at sports, while I was drawn to art and literature. Mom always tried to celebrate our different strengths equally, but Ornella perceived every single compliment I received as a direct slight against her. After Mom died, the tension between us escalated dramatically. Dad threw himself into his work, often staying at the office until 9 or 10 at night. I suspect it was his way of avoiding the painful emptiness of our home. His absence created this vacuum that Ornella quickly filled, appointing herself as the new lady of the house at just 15 years old. "Dad is dealing with enough without your constant neediness," she would scold when I asked when he might come home for dinner. "He has important clients to take care of. We need to be strong for him." I watched as Ornella transformed into someone I barely. The University of Rochester offered me a partial scholarship, and I threw myself into campus life completely, limiting visits home to major holidays where I would endure Ornella's subtle jabs and my father's distant politeness. It was during my sophomore year that I met Cassian, and everything changed. We shared an English literature class, and he asked to borrow my notes after missing a lection due to the flu. Tall, with the kindest eyes and this quick smile, Cassian was studying engineering and had this logical mind that perfectly balanced my more creative thinking. Our coffee meetup to exchange notes turned into a 3-hour conversation, and within a month we were absolutely inseparable. Cassian came from this warm, boisterous family that immediately embraced me like I had always belonged there. His mother, Phaedra, was a kindergarten teacher with this incredible talent for making everyone feel special. His father, Henrik, was a civil engineer with a dry sense of humor, and his younger brother, Evander, all welcomed me into their home as if I had always been part of their family. Through 4 years of college and into our early careers, Cassian remained my absolute rock. He understood my family issues without any judgment, holding me when holidays with them left me in tears, and celebrating my achievements when my own father failed to acknowledge them. After graduation, I secured a position at a marketing firm in Albany, while Cassian joined an engineering consultancy in the same city. We rented this small apartment together, building our careers and our relationship, far from the shadow of my family drama. I maintained obligatory monthly calls with my father, which were typically brief and completely superficial. Ornella, now working in real estate and still living in our hometown, continued to position herself as the perfect daughter, making sure to remind me on the rare occasions we spoke that she was the one taking care of Dad. By 27, I had been promoted to marketing executive, leading campaigns for major clients and earning recognition in the industry. Cassian had similarly advanced in his field, and our life together was fulfilling beyond what I had ever imagined possible. The wounds from my family remained, but I had created this new life where I was valued and loved unconditionally. Cassian proposed on our 5th anniversary. He had planned this entire day reminiscent of our first dates: breakfast at the cafe where we used to study, a visit to the art museum I loved, and dinner at the Italian restaurant where we had celebrated my college graduation. When the dessert arrived, I found this small velvet box next to my tiramisu. "Lumina," he said, taking my hands across the table, "you have made these past 5 years the absolute best of my life. Your creativity, your kindness, and your strength amaze me every single day. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" The ring was absolutely perfect, a vintage-style sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. Cassian later told me he had chosen it because it reminded him of my artistic spirit, unique rather than conventional. In the joy of that moment, I pushed aside the anxiety about sharing our news with my family. For one perfect evening, I wanted to simply be happy without the shadow of past disappointments looming over me. The next morning, I called my father. After exchanging our usual pleasantries, I took a deep breath and shared my news. "Dad, I wanted you to know that Cassian proposed last night, and I said yes." The pause that followed lasted way too long. "Well, congratulations," he finally said, his tone more appropriate for hearing about a minor work achievement than his daughter's engagement. "He seems like a decent guy. Have you set a date?" "Not yet," I replied, trying to mask my disappointment. "We're thinking maybe next summer. Let me know when you decide. I should check my calendar." After hanging up, I sat on our couch, fighting back tears. Cassian found me there and immediately understood what had happened. "He'll come around," he assured me, though I could tell he didn't fully believe it himself. Ornella's reaction was even more telling when I texted her the news with a photo of the ring. Her response was excessively congratulatory to the point of being obviously insincere. "OMG, congrats, little sis. So happy for you. That ring is so pretty." The excessive exclamation points couldn't mask what I knew was seething jealousy underneath. Ornella, at 31, had gone through a series of short-lived relationships, but never seemed to find someone willing to commit long-term. Despite the lukewarm response from my family, we proceeded with planning enthusiastically. After considering various options, we settled on June 15th as our wedding date, giving us 9 months to arrange everything perfectly. The date worked well As we continued planning, I also grew closer to Cassian's uncle, Magnus, his mother's brother. Magnus was in his early 60s, a retired English professor with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He had never married or had children of his own, but he doted on Cassian and Evander as if they were his sons. At family gatherings, Magnus always made a point to engage me in conversation about books, art, or my work in marketing. Unlike many older relatives who asked polite but disinterested questions, Magnus listened attentively and offered thoughtful responses. "You have a remarkable eye for what moves people," he said, after I showed him a campaign I had developed for a nonprofit client. "That's a rare gift in this world." During one Sunday dinner at Cassian's parents' home, Magnus mentioned that he had reserved a hotel room for the wedding weekend. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," he said with this warm smile. "I've already bought a new suit for the occasion." His genuine enthusiasm was a stark contrast to my own family's responses. My father would confirm his attendance during our calls, but never initiated any questions about the wedding plans. Ornella had declined to be a bridesmaid, citing work commitments, though she did say she would attend. 5 months before our wedding, I began to notice these troubling signs. Ornella started making vague comments on social media about a big event she was planning. When I called in to ask about it, she was completely evasive. "Just something for work," she said dismissively. "Nothing for you to worry about." But as our wedding date approached, I noticed more posts. Venue scouting, discussing catering options, mentioning June as a target date. A knot of anxiety began to form in my stomach, but I tried to push it aside, focusing instead on finalizing our own plans. The bombshell dropped exactly 3 months before our wedding day. Ornella called me on a Sunday afternoon, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Lumina, I wanted to let you know personally before you see it on social media. I'm hosting a career achievement party on June 15th. I've finally hit my sales target to become a broker, and the firm is throwing me a huge celebration." My blood ran cold. "Ornella, that's my wedding day. You received the save the date card 8 months ago." "Did I?" She feigned surprise. "It must have slipped my mind when I was planning with the firm. Anyway, it's just a coincidence that the dates overlap. My event is earlier in the day, starting at 11 in the morning at the country club. It should be winding down around the time your ceremony starts at 4, so it works out perfectly." "Perfectly?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're scheduling a party on my wedding day knowing Dad will have to choose?" "Dad can attend both events," she replied smoothly. "He's so proud of my achievement, but I'm sure he'll make it to your wedding too. It's not that far a drive." The country club was nearly 2 hours from our wedding venue, making it physically impossible for anyone attending her event to arrive in time for our ceremony, especially the father of the bride, who would need to be there early. After hanging up, I immediately called my father, hoping he would see through Ornella's manipulation. "Dad, did you know Ornella scheduled her work party on my wedding day?" "Yes, she mentioned it," he replied casually. "It's unfortunate timing, but these work events can be hard to reschedule. It's a big achievement for her." "But Dad, how will you attend both? You're supposed to walk me down the aisle." "I'll make it work, Lumina. I'll go to the first part of Ornella's event and then drive over for your ceremony. There's no need to make this a bigger issue than it is." But as the weeks passed, I could sense my father wavering. During our calls, he began mentioning the traffic between venues, asking if we could push the ceremony back an hour, wondering if I really needed him there for the pre-wedding photos. Despite the growing tension, our wedding plans continued. Final dress fittings, meetings with the photographer, confirming flower arrangements, and assembling welcome bags for out-of-town guests kept me busy. Cassian and his family remained supportive, though I could tell they were increasingly concerned about my father's commitment. Then, just the next day, Cassian's mother called to check on wedding details and immediately sensed something was wrong. I found myself pouring out the whole story to her over the phone. "Oh, sweetheart, Phaedra said, her voice filled with motherly concern. "I can't believe your father would do this to you." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "Part of me wants to call and beg him to reconsider, but I know that's what Ornella expects. She wants me to seem desperate." "Listen to me," Phaedra said firmly. "This is your day, yours and Cassian's. Don't let anyone diminish it. Your father is making a choice he'll regret for the rest of his life, but that's his burden to bear, not yours." Her words gave me strength, but the question remained: who would walk me down the aisle? The traditional father-daughter moment had been something I had dreamed about despite our difficult relationship. The thought of walking alone felt like a public acknowledgement of my father's rejection. Later that week, I received an unexpected call from Magnus. "Cassian told me what happened," he said gently. "I hope you don't mind him sharing." "Of course not," I replied, touched that he would call to check on me. "I know this is a difficult time," Magnus continued. "Family disappointments cut the deepest." Something in his tone suggested personal experience with such pain. "It sounds like you understand." A pause. "More than you might guess. My own father refused to attend my college graduation because he disapproved of my choice to study literature instead of business. Some wounds never fully heal, but we learn to build beautiful lives despite them." His wisdom and kindness brought fresh tears to my eyes. "Thank you for understanding, Magnus." "Anytime, dear. And remember, family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you when it matters." 1 week before the wedding, I hit rock bottom emotionally. Despite the excited emails from friends arriving in town and the final confirmations from vendors, I found myself sitting on our bathroom floor at midnight, overwhelmed by grief. The wedding I had planned was coming together perfectly, except for the gaping hole left by my father's absence. The next morning, Castian suggested I meet his mother for lunch. "Just the two of you," he said. Phaedra was waiting at a quiet corner table in a small cafe when I arrived. She stood to hug me tightly before we sat down. "Cassian is worried about you," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "We all are." "I'm trying to be strong," I replied, stirring my tea without drinking it. "I keep telling myself it doesn't matter, that I'm better off without Dad there if this is how he treats me. But then I think about walking into the ceremony alone, and I just feel abandoned." "That's perfectly natural," Phaedra said softly. "It's okay to feel that way, Lumina. What your father is doing is wrong, and you have every right to be hurt." We ordered lunch, though I had little appetite. As we picked at our salads, Phaedra seemed to be gathering her thoughts. "There's something I think you should know," she finally said. "Something about Magnus that might help you understand why he called you." I looked up, curious. "What about him?" "Magnus was actually married once, very briefly, when he was young. When he decided to pursue his PhD, his father completely cut him off financially and emotionally, said he was wasting his life on useless books instead of contributing to society." I nodded, recalling Magnus's comment about his father missing his graduation. "What you might not know is that I was married once before Henrik. A brief, unfortunate union when I was very young. When I decided to marry Henrik, my father refused to attend because he thought it was shameful for me to have a second wedding. He said it would embarrass him in front of his friends." "That's terrible," I murmured. "It was Magnus who offered to walk me down the aisle," she said, a small smile forming. "He understood what it was like to be rejected by a parent. He told me, 'Phaedra, you deserve to be given away by someone who celebrates your happiness, not someone who judges it.'" Her words resonated deeply with my situation. "I had no idea Magnus did that for you." "He's never had children of his own, but he's been the most wonderful uncle to Cassian and Evander. He attends every school play, graduation,
every important moment. He shows up, Lumina. That's what real family does. The implication of her story was clear, but she was too tactful to say it directly. Still,
The weight that had been crushing me for weeks suddenly felt lighter. Magnus was right. Family was about who showed up, not just shared DNA. The final days before the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Final vendor confirmations, welcome bags to assemble, out-of-town guests beginning to arrive. Through it all, I felt a new sense of peace about my decision. I made one last attempt to reach out to my father, calling him 3 days before the wedding. "Dad, I just wanted to confirm whether you're still planning to come to the reception." "Yes, I should be able to make it after Ornella's event," he replied, sounding distracted, probably around 7:30 or 8. I swallowed hard. "I also wanted you to know that I've asked Cassian's Uncle Magnus to walk me down the aisle." "Who?" "Magnus Harris, Cassian's uncle. He's been very supportive throughout our relationship." "I see." His tone was unreadable. "Well, I suppose someone has to do it if I can't be there on time." His dismissive response only confirmed I had made the right choice. The night before the wedding, we held a small rehearsal dinner at a restaurant near the hotel. Magnus attended, looking distinguished in a charcoal suit. During the dinner, he stood to offer a toast that brought tears to many eyes. "To Lumina and Cassian," he said, raising his glass. "True love isn't just about finding the right person, but also about creating a family of choice that supports and celebrates you. I've watched your relationship blossom over these years, and the care and respect you show each other give me hope for the future. I'm deeply honored to play a small role in your special day tomorrow." Later that evening, as guests were leaving, I checked social media one last time and saw posts from Ornella about her career celebration. The photos showed nothing more than simple decorations in her apartment with maybe a dozen people tagged. It was clearly not the grand corporate event she had described, just a regular house party she had scheduled specifically to conflict with my wedding. The knowledge should have hurt, but instead, I felt a strange sense of clarity about the true nature of my sister's feelings toward me. Her jealousy ran so deep that she would sabotage one of the most important days of my life simply out of spite. I closed the app and turned off my phone, determined not to let her negativity touch me on the eve of my wedding. Tomorrow would be about love, not family drama. I awoke on my wedding day to sunshine streaming through the hotel room curtains. My 3 bridesmaids, all friends from college and work, arrived early with coffee and pastries, their excitement infectious. The hairstylist and makeup artist arrived at 9, and the getting ready process began in earnest. As my friend Sophia was having her hair styled, my phone chimed with a text message from my father. "Good luck today. Ornella's event starts at 11. If it wraps up early, I might be able to make it to the reception by 7:30 or 8. Save me some cake." Not a word of regret about missing the ceremony, not even a congratulations or I love you, just a reminder that Ornella's party was his priority. I handed the phone to my bridesmaid Zoe, unable to respond. She read it and shook her head in disbelief. "He's unbelievable," she muttered, giving me a supportive hug. "Try not to let it ruin your day." Around noon, there was a knock at the hotel suite door. When Sophia opened it, Magnus was standing there, immaculately dressed in his tuxedo, holding a small gift box. "I hope I'm not intruding on the preparations," he said. "I just wanted to drop this off for Lumina before the ceremony." I invited him in, touched by his thoughtfulness. The bridesmaids discreetly moved to the bedroom area of the suite to give us a moment of privacy. "You look absolutely radiant," Magnus said, his eyes crinkling with genuine warmth. "Cassian is a very fortunate young man." "Thank you for coming by, and for everything else." Magnus handed me the small box. "I wanted you to have this today. It belonged to my mother, and I've been saving it for a special occasion. Inside was a delicate vintage handkerchief, edged with intricate lace and embroidered with tiny blue flowers. Something old, something blue, Magnus explained. My mother carried it on her wedding day in 1930. I thought perhaps you might like to have it with you today. Tears welled in my eyes at the sentiment. It's beautiful, Magnus. I would be honored. There's one more thing, he added, reaching into his pocket. Phaedra asked me to give you this. It was meant to be a surprise. Walking down the aisle with Magnus beside me, I felt a curious blend of emotions. There was still a pang of sadness that my father had chosen to miss this moment, but it was overshadowed by gratitude for the man who had stepped in with such grace and kindness. Cassian's face, as he watched me approach, was worth every moment of planning, every family drama, every tear shed. His eyes shone with love and wonder, and in that moment I knew with absolute certainty that we were creating our own family, one built on mutual respect and genuine care. The ceremony was everything I had hoped for. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly, and to choose each other every day. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the applause from our guests seemed to wrap around us like an embrace. The cocktail hour and dinner that followed were filled with laughter, toasts, and dancing. Cassian's father gave a heartfelt speech welcoming me to the family, and Magnus's toast brought happy tears to many eyes as he spoke about the privilege of watching young love blossom and grow. By 8:30, it was clear my father would not make even the reception. I tried not to let it dampen my spirits as Cassian and I shared our first dance to our favorite song. As the evening progressed, I noticed my cousin Stellan arrive, looking slightly frazzled. Stellan was my mother's nephew, and while we weren't extremely close, he had always been kind to me. He was also one of the few family members who had maintained relationships with both Ornella and me over the years. After greeting him with a hug, I commented on his late arrival. "I'm so sorry," he said, looking genuinely apologetic. "I stopped by Ornella's event first, thinking I could make both. But Lumina, there's something you should know." He guided me to a quiet corner of the reception hall, his expression serious. "That party Ornella had today, it wasn't what she told everyone. It wasn't a work event at all." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "It was just a regular gathering at her apartment, maybe 15 people total, mostly her friends from the gym and a couple of coworkers. There was no company recognition, no achievement celebration. I asked her colleague Sarah about the broker promotion, and she looked completely confused." The implications were staggering. So she lied about the whole thing just to create a conflict with my wedding? Stellan nodded grimly. "That's not all. I overheard her talking to your dad. She's been telling him for months that you didn't really want him at the wedding, that you only asked him to walk you down the aisle out of obligation." "What?" My voice came out as a whisper. "That's completely false." "I know. And there's more." Stellan pulled out his phone and showed me a text exchange between him and Ornella months earlier. In it, Ornella openly admitted to scheduling her party on my wedding day, deliberately. She wanted to force your dad to choose, and she made sure he would choose her by telling him you had said horrible things about him to the family. The revelation was shocking and strangely validating. All these years, I had thought I was being paranoid about Ornella's manipulations, but here was proof that she had been actively sabotaging my relationship with our father. "Does Dad know any of this?" I asked. Stellan shook his head. "I don't think so. I tried to tell him today, but Ornella kept interrupting and eventually pulled him away. I'm so sorry, Lumina. I should have realized what was happening sooner." I hugged my cousin, grateful for his honesty. "Thank you for telling me, Stellan." As the reception continued, I tried to process this new information. Part of me wanted to call my father immediately and expose Ornella's lies, but another part recognized that this was my wedding day, and I deserved to enjoy it without family drama. I rejoined Cassian on the dance floor, pushing thoughts of my sister and father aside for the moment. This day was about our love and our future, not the painful past. The reception was winding down around 10:30, with only about 40 guests remaining, when I noticed a commotion near the entrance. My heart skipped a beat when I recognized my father's tall figure entering the ballroom, looking uncomfortable in a suit that seemed hastily put on. My father's expression shifted from disbelief to confusion. Before he could respond, Magnus approached our small group. "Lumina, Cassian is looking for you. I believe it's almost time for the sparkler send-off." My father stared at Magnus with barely concealed hostility. "You must be the uncle who walked my daughter down the aisle?" Magnus extended his hand politely. "Magnus Harris. You must be Thaddeus. It's good to finally meet you." My father ignored the outstretched hand. "I don't understand why my daughter needed to have a stranger take my place at her wedding." "Dad, stop it," I hissed, mortified by his behavior. Magnus remained composed despite the obvious slight. "I can understand your confusion. It was an honor to support Lumina on her special day, especially knowing how important the ceremony was to her." "Important to her?" my father scoffed. "If it was so important, she could have scheduled it on a day that didn't conflict with her sister's event." "My wedding was scheduled 9 months ago," I interjected, my voice rising. "Ornella deliberately planned her party for the same day, and Stellan has proof of it." Stellan reluctantly showed my father the text messages from Ornella, where she explicitly stated her intention to create a conflict. My father read them, his face growing increasingly pale. "This can't be right," he muttered. "Ornella wouldn't do this." "She's been doing it for years, Dad," I said, my voice breaking. "She's been deliberately driving a wedge between us since Mom died. She lied to you about me not wanting you at my art ceremony, about me not caring if you came to my graduation dinner, and now about me not really wanting you to walk me down the aisle." My father looked genuinely shocked. "She told me you said having me walk you down the aisle would be embarrassing because we aren't close anymore. She said you only asked out of obligation." "That's absolutely not true," I insisted. "I wanted you there. I've always wanted you in my life." The realization seemed to hit my father all at once, the years of manipulation suddenly becoming clear to him. His expression shifted from confusion to anger. "I need to speak with Ornella," he said sharply, pulling out his phone. "Right now." "Not now," I pleaded. "This is my wedding reception." But he was already dialing. Stepping away from our group, I could hear him speaking in terse, angry tones just outside the ballroom doors. Magnus placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry about this, Lumina. Should I get Cassian?" I nodded gratefully, feeling overwhelmed by the confrontation. Magnus disappeared into the crowd, returning moments later with my new husband. Cassian took in the situation quickly, putting a protective arm around me. "What happened?" Before I could explain, my father returned, his face flushed with anger. "Ornella hung up on me. I'm going to her apartment right now to get the truth." "Dad, please, can this wait until tomorrow? This is supposed to be a celebration." "I need to know if what you're saying is true, if Ornella has been lying to me all these years." "She has," Stellan confirmed quietly. "I'm sorry, Uncle Thaddeus, but it's true." My father looked at me, then at Magnus, who was standing supportively beside Cassian and me. Something about seeing us together seemed to trigger a fresh wave of anger in him. "So you replaced me with him?" he demanded, gesturing toward Magnus. "Some random old man you barely know?" Magnus stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Evans, I understand you're upset, but this is neither the time nor the place for this conversation. Today is about Lumina and Cassian's marriage, not about past grievances." "Don't tell me what this day is about," he snapped. "She's my daughter." "Then perhaps you should have acted like her father," Magnus replied evenly. "Being a father means showing up, not just when it's convenient, but when it matters most." The next few weeks were busy with thank you notes, returning to work, and settling into married life. I maintained contact with Cassian's family, especially Magnus, who called every Sunday evening to check in. "How are you doing, Lumina?" he would ask, his voice warm with genuine concern. Our conversations would range from books we were reading to work projects to deeper discussions about family and forgiveness. Magnus never pressured me about reconnecting with my father, but his own experiences offered valuable perspective. "Forgiveness isn't about excusing the behavior," he told me during one call. "It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. Whatever you decide about your relationship with your father, make sure it brings you peace." A month after our return, I finally called my father. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between Albany and Buffalo. He was already there when I arrived, looking older and more tired than I remembered from the wedding. He stood awkwardly as I approached the table. "Lumina, thank you for coming," he said, his voice thick with emotion. We sat down, ordering coffee to give ourselves something to do with our hands. "I don't even know where to begin," he said, after our drinks arrived. "I failed you so completely." "Yes, you did," I agreed, not willing to sugarcoat the truth. "But I want to understand how it happened. How did you not see what Ornella was doing all these years?" He sighed heavily. "After your mother died, I was lost. Ornella stepped up to take care of things at home, and I was grateful. It was easier to believe her version of events than to face my own grief and inadequacy as a single parent. She became my connection to you, filtering everything through her perspective. By the time you left for college, I believed her narrative that you were pulling away from the family. I never wanted to pull away from you. I just couldn't handle Ornella's constant manipulation. It was easier to distance myself. I understand that now." After the wedding, when I confronted her, she finally admitted everything. "She's been jealous of our relationship since you were a child. She felt I always favored you, and after your mother died, she saw an opportunity to have me all to herself." "Have you spoken to her since?" He shook his head. "She left for a business trip to Florida the day after I confronted her. She's staying with a friend in Miami and refuses to discuss what happened. I don't know when or if she'll come back." We talked for nearly 3 hours, going through painful memories and misunderstandings. There were tears on both sides, recriminations, and eventually the beginnings of understanding. "I want to try to rebuild our relationship," my father said, as we prepared to leave. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing, I would like to get to know the amazing woman you've become." "I need to think about it," I replied honestly. "This isn't something we can fix in one conversation." He nodded, accepting my boundary. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." Over the following months, we began a careful reconciliation. Weekly phone calls became regular visits. I introduced him properly to Cassian's family, including Magnus, who displayed remarkable grace in welcoming my father despite their awkward first meeting. 3 months after our first reunion, my father suggested a family dinner at his home, including Cassian's parents and Magnus. It was a tentative step toward blending our families, and while there were awkward moments, there was also genuine effort on all sides. After dinner, I found my father and Magnus in the living room, deep in conversation. I want to thank you for being there for Lumina when I wasn't. Walking her down the aisle should have been my privilege, but you did it with honor. Magnus nodded thoughtfully. She's a remarkable young woman. You should be very proud of who she's become, largely through her own strength and determination. I am, my father agreed. I just wish I had been more present to see it happening. Their conversation gave me hope that perhaps the wounds of the past could truly heal with time and effort. Ornella remained distant, occasionally sending impersonal text messages or holiday cards, but avoiding any real conversation about what had happened. I came to accept that some relationships might never be repaired, and that was okay. 6 months after the wedding, we hosted our first Thanksgiving as a married couple. Our dining table was filled with Cassian's family, my father, cousin Stalin, and a few close friends. Ornella was invited, but declined without explanation. As we went around the table sharing what we were thankful for, my father's voice broke with emotion. I'm thankful.
On our 1-year anniversary, Cassian and I held a small dinner party to celebrate. The guest list included both families, my father, Cassian's parents, Magnus, Stellan, and a few close friends. It was exactly the kind of intimate gathering I had always dreamed of, filled with people who genuinely cared about our happiness. Magnus surprised us with a toast that brought tears to my eyes. 1 year ago, I had the privilege of walking this beautiful young woman down the aisle to marry the man she loves. What began as a response to absence has become one of the greatest gifts of my life, the opportunity to be part of Lumina and Cassian's journey. He paused, looking around the table at the assembled group. May your marriage continue to grow in strength and joy. And may you always remember that true family consists of those who choose to love you, even when it's difficult. My father stood up then, something he had never done at family gatherings in the past. I'd like to add something, if I may, he said, his voice slightly shaky. A year ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life by missing my daughter's wedding. I let manipulation and lies blind me to what really mattered. He looked directly at me. Lumina, you have every right to have written me off completely. The fact that you've given me a second chance is more than I deserve. And Magnus, he turned to face the older man. Thank you for being the father I should have been on the most important day of her life. Magnus inclined his head graciously. We all make mistakes, Thaddeus. What matters is what we do with the lessons they teach us. The evening continued with stories, laughter, and the kind of easy conversation that comes when people genuinely enjoy each other's company. I watched my father chatting animatedly with Henrik about fishing, saw Phaedra and Stellan bonding over their shared love of gardening, and marveled at how naturally Magnus fit into every conversation. As guests were preparing to leave, Magnus pulled me aside for a private moment. I wanted you to know how proud I am of the grace you've shown this past year, he said. Rebuilding trust with your father couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, I admitted, but you taught me something important about family. It's not just about blood relations, it's about who chooses to show up consistently. Exactly, Magnus smiled. And now you have both, a father who's learning to show up and a chosen family who's always been there. 2 weeks after our anniversary party, I received an unexpected phone call. The caller ID showed Ornella's number, and for a moment I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. Lumina. Her voice sounded different, smaller, less confident than I remembered. Ornella, this is unexpected. I know. I've been in Miami for almost a year now, and I've had a lot of time to think about things. She paused. I heard from Stellan that you and Dad have been working things out. We have, I said carefully, not sure where this conversation was heading. And I also heard about your anniversary party, that Dad toasted you and your husband. Her voice cracked slightly. I suppose Magnus was there too? He was. Ornella, why are you calling? A long silence. I've been seeing a therapist down here. She's helping me understand some things about myself, about the jealousy and manipulation. Another pause. I know I ruined your wedding day. I know I've been sabotaging your relationship with Dad for years. I waited, not sure how to respond. I'm not calling to ask for forgiveness, she continued. I know I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did was wrong, deeply wrong, and I'm working on becoming a better person. I appreciate you saying that, I replied honestly. It doesn't undo the damage, but it's a start. I know. And I know I can't come back and expect everything to be fine. But maybe someday, if you're ever willing, we could try to have some kind of relationship again. Not like before. Something new and honest. I thought about Magnus's words about forgiveness being a process, not a destination. Maybe, I said. But it would take time and it would have to be completely different from what we had before. I understand. Take care of yourself, Lumina, and tell him I'm sorry for everything. After she hung up, I sat with the phone in my hands processing the conversation. Cassian found me there when he came home from work. That was Ornella, I told him, explaining the call. How do you feel about it? He asked, settling beside me on the couch. Honestly, surprised, and maybe a tiny bit hopeful. Not for going back to how things were, that's impossible, but for the possibility of something healthier in the future. That sounds very mature, Cassian said, pulling me close. You don't have to decide anything right now. I know, and I won't, but it's good to know she's finally taking responsibility.
As I reflect on the journey that brought us here, I realize that sometimes life's greatest wounds can lead to unexpected healing. My father's absence on my wedding day led to Magnus's presence, which in turn created a bridge for my father's return to my life. The family I have now includes both those I was born to and those I have chosen, all imperfect, all valuable in their own ways. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing harmful behavior. It means freeing yourself from the burden of resentment and creating boundaries that protect your heart while allowing for growth and change. My relationship with my father will never be what it might have been without Ornella's interference, but it has become something real and meaningful in its own right. The person who walks you down the aisle should indeed be someone who has walked beside you through life's challenges, supporting and loving you unconditionally. Sometimes that person shares your DNA, and sometimes they come into your life through other paths. What matters most isn't who stands beside you on one important day, but who shows up for all the ordinary days that follow. Magnus taught me that family is created through consistent love and choice, not just shared genetics. He showed me what it looks like when someone chooses you every day, celebrates your victories without jealousy, and offers support without conditions. In many ways, he became the father figure I had always needed, not replacing my biological father, but filling a role that had been empty for too long. My father's journey back into my life has been slow and sometimes painful, but it's been genuine. He's had to confront uncomfortable truths about how his grief and passivity allowed manipulation to flourish. The work he's done to rebuild our relationship has been consistent and humble, never demanding immediate forgiveness, but always showing up when it mattered. Even Ornella's story isn't finished. Her willingness to acknowledge her behavior and seek help suggests that change is possible, even for relationships that seem irreparably damaged. I'm not ready to fully trust her again, and I may never be, but I'm open to the possibility that people can grow and change if they're willing to do the hard work. Cassian has been my anchor through all of this, never pushing me toward forgiveness, but always supporting whatever choice felt right for me. His family's immediate acceptance of me showed me what healthy family dynamics look like, and their continued inclusion of my father in gatherings demonstrates that chosen family can expand to embrace biological family when everyone is committed to growth. The wedding day that almost fell apart became the foundation for something stronger than I could have imagined. Yes, my father's betrayal was devastating, but it also revealed who my true supporters were. It showed me that I had built a life surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give them. To anyone watching who has experienced family betrayal or disappointment, I want you to know that your worth isn't determined by how your family treats you. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are the ones who hurt us most deeply. But that doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means they have work to do on themselves. Build your chosen family carefully and deliberately. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your successes, support you through challenges, and show up consistently. These people might be friends, mentors, colleagues, or family members of people you love. What matters is that they choose you every day just as you choose them. If you're in a situation where family manipulation is causing you to doubt your own reality, trust your instincts. Document what happens, seek support from neutral parties, and don't be afraid to set boundaries to protect your mental health. You deserve relationships that build you up, not tear you down. For those who recognize themselves in my father's story, parents who have allowed manipulation to damage their relationship with their children, it's never too late to start telling the truth. Acknowledge what happened, take responsibility for your part in it, and be prepared to do the long, slow work of rebuilding trust. Don't expect immediate forgiveness, but don't give up if the relationship matters to you. And if you see yourself in Magnus's role, someone who could step up for a person in need, please consider doing so. You might not realize the profound impact your kindness could have. The person who needs you might not be a family member or even someone you know well, but your willingness to show up could change the trajectory of their life. Looking ahead, Cassian and I are excited about building our own family traditions. We want our future children to grow up knowing they are loved unconditionally, that their achievements will be celebrated, and that family loyalty should never require accepting harmful behavior. Magnus will undoubtedly be an incredible grandfather figure, just as he's been an incredible father figure to me. My father will have the opportunity to be the grandfather he never quite managed to be as a father, present, supportive, and consistently available. The wedding that nearly fell apart led to the family I was meant to have. Not perfect, but real. Not without pain, but full of love. Not defined by blood alone, but strengthened by choice. Have you ever had someone unexpected step up for you when family let you down? Or have you been the person who stepped in when needed? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to hear more tales of family